Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Natasha McCoy. I represent NM2C. I'm in Louisiana, your cousin to the west. I am here to present on basics of grant writing. First and foremost, I would like to thank Executive Director Kim Grippa and Mr. Dalen Darlin, the Institute of Nonprofit Innovation and Excellence Revenue Resource Coordinator, for providing this training to all of you today, as well as the walkthrough of the amazing Institute for Nonprofit Innovation and Excellence. I hope that my presentation today gives you a basic understanding of grants and grant writing, as well as key information to really motivate you to use the resources available at the Institute. So if there are any other announcements, we'll get started. So again, this is understanding and writing successful grant applications. This is pretty much a basics of grant writing. Objectives for today, you will leave the understanding of how to explain the difference between a grant and a donation, list common grant proposal sections, understand how to prepare a grant proposal, and avoid common grant writing mistakes. This presentation is being recorded. A copy of the recording will be shared with all of you. So we'll make sure that the Institute has everyone's name and contact information to make sure you receive a copy of the recording. And we'll also provide plenty of time for questions, a Q&A segment. So let's get started by talking about not-for-profit revenue. A lot of people don't think of nonprofits having revenue, but you do. You have your costs and you have things you need to pay for. So the opposite needs to happen as well. You need to get money into your organization to pay for everything. So where does that revenue come from? It comes from many different streams. You have grants, annual campaigns. Sometimes it may be larger annual campaigns, sometimes smaller annual campaigns, but many different types of fundraising, funds development activities that you can take for bringing in donations and profit into your nonprofit. Major giving programs, planned giving campaigns that includes bequests, trusts, annuities, etc. Capital campaigns. Now, those are the much larger multi-year campaigns. You may be more familiar with those if you have ever worked with a church organization that has been worked many years to raise money to build a larger church facility or just establish a church facility. Sometimes schools run capital campaigns because they're trying to move their children from a smaller school building or unit into a larger facility. So that's used for typically used for brick and mortar projects. And then most nonprofits really don't factor in the revenue of volunteer time because those individuals are giving their time and that really translates into money. So otherwise you would have been paying for that person. But when you do your budgets, when it comes to grant writing, a lot of times people forget to include that in their projects, in their budget, because that goes in your in-kind services area. So let's talk a bit about grants versus donations. So grants is money given for a particular project. Again, emphasizing the word project. We'll talk about the difference between grant and donation, but if you take away anything out of this presentation, grants are for a particular project. Means that there's something that you're trying to achieve. Grants do not function the same as sponsorships, donations, gifts. Gifts could be in the form of some type of downsizing. Many of you may know people who may have gotten older and wanted to move into smaller buildings or smaller housing, and so they donated a lot of their furniture or things that may not fit into the next space they're moving into. That's a gift, as well as individual bequests. Those are gifts because those come in the form of something that you don't have to pay for. You may or may not have asked for it, but you are receiving it. You complete a competitive selection process. Another big difference between grants and donations. There may be some type of process involved where you're putting together a formal presentation and it's being reviewed and you're receiving some type of response and a formal process for receiving the award. It's subject to some form of federal, state, or local oversight. There's many common grant opportunities types. You may have seen this in the form of repairs and infrastructure, education, economic development, social justice, neighborhood development, or proof of concept. Many people don't know that the government offers grant programs, free money for testing innovative ideas. Now, on the opposite end, donations are the making of a gift, especially to a charity or public institution, a free contribution. So grants and donations are both free, but the donation is something that you may receive with or without a competitive process. But you still must use funds as intended. There are still rules and regulations around how those funds are used or utilized. It may or may not require reports. Many times, if you're familiar with Girl Scout cookies, you know, that donation, the provision of the funds for the cookies is a donation to the Girl Scouts, but they're not necessarily having to have any strenuous reporting for that donation. But it is something that that it is reported to some degree of the level, but not at the same level as a federal, state, or local grant may require. Giving happens anywhere. Again, like you said, it could be a donation on the street to a child's lemonade stand, or to more formal process might be a donation to a Salvation Army. It's either regulated or unrelated, unregulated, given in the form of cash, stock, land, property, digital currency. Now you have people who are able to donate in the form of Bitcoin or some type of other type of digital currency, travel, leisure, animals, etc. So yes, animals do count as a gift, as a donation. So let's talk a bit about national trends in giving. I know this is going to be very helpful to you, especially if you're a nonprofit who's starting out, or nonprofit that's working to retool, revisit how you can gain and access that not-for-profit revenue. This comes from Giving USA. Every year, Giving USA publishes a report on annual charitable giving in the United States. And so I'm going to give you a bit of insight from that report and some additional information. So in 2021, nonprofits in the United States received approximately $484 billion with a B in charitable giving. This was according to Giving USA's 2022 report. Here's a pie chart. I hope everyone can see it. You may not be able to see the little labels next to each pie piece, but in 2021, individuals gave 68%. Like I said, it was $484 billion. And the majority of that came from individual giving. So please do not overlook individuals who are willing to give or donate to your organization, because they are who make up the majority of giving in the United States. Followed by foundations. Foundations offered 19% of that $484 billion in money given to nonprofits in 2021. Then followed by bequests, and many of you know about the donations that businesses give. Corporations are actually the least of the givers at 4%. So if you feel that there's need for money and raising funds and identifying who can give, don't leave out the individuals, because they give more than the foundations, than corporations, and the bequests. But those are other ways of generating revenue for your nonprofit. The contributions by recipient gives a very nice story from the Giving USA report. At the largest amount is religion. So if you represent a faith-based group or entity, you are part of the industry that received the highest percentage, 27% of that $484 billion. That means people giving during their religious services, giving for charitable events, activities, giving for services offered by that faith-based group. But know that religious organizations are the highest recipients, received the largest amount of funds received in 2021, followed by education at 14%, tied at 13% as the human services and even grant making foundations. So many times, a lot of the grant makers themselves are recipients as well. Seeing that in addition, there's the public society benefit groups that received a nice portion. If you are involved in any health related projects, that could be things addressing nutrition, the chronic disease, infectious disease, health received 8% of that $484 billion. There's also money donated to international affairs, arts, culture, and humanities, environment. So know that you are definitely in the zone when it comes to giving. People are giving for climate change. They're given for to help and address the needs of animals. So know that there is a small percentage, not comparable to education or human services, but the funds and dollars are out there and people are giving for those needs. In FY 2020, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services awarded approximately $726 billion in transactional grants and financial assistance. So those transactional grants are the ones you're more familiar with, the ones you go to grants.gov and find and search. Those are transactional. So those funds are, you present a proposal and it's awarded. And the Department of Health and Human Services, which is the main organization for many federally funded initiatives and opportunities, also gave $901 billion in other financial assistance. Now, there's a bit of asterisk here. This is an organization that was also primarily responsible for giving a number of funds for COVID response. So that number is elevated from prior years, but understanding that year to year, this particular agency, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, oversees billions of dollars every year, regardless of the situation, towards both transactional grants, financial assistance, and other forms of financial assistance. So these are just some really helpful insights to let you know that the money is out there. So where do you find this information on grants and donations? Certainly, like I said, work with the Institute of Nonprofit Excellence. The Revenue Resource Center will help you connect. You have the opportunity to look into their available services and resources, but know that the U.S. Federal Treasury, grants.gov, Giving USA, Black Bond Institute, National Philanthropic Trust, local community, it could be the companies in your community, foundations, word of mouth, people knowing who has gotten a grant from somewhere before, or knows that someone's giving and they want to donate to a particular cause or organization. And the subscription services offered, many offered right there, right where you are at the Revenue Resource Center. Subscription services, the Grant Station, Grant Watch, Instrumental, and the Foundation Directory online. But these are really great resources that you have access to as a member of the Institute for Nonprofit Innovation Excellence. Next, we go into common grant proposal sections. So common grant proposal components, there are some components that were repeated every grant opportunity because it gives the information the funder needs and helps them determine who they're going to give funding to. So you're looking at providing some form of an executive summary, the background justification, statement of need, project description, organizational information, partner information, budget, and some form of attachment or supplementary information that supports the information that you provided and presented in your proposal. We'll go over each one of these in a little bit more detail and give an example of how to put together a proposal for a project. So looking at the executive summary, this is where you're going to go into provide an overall summary of everything you're asking for. So you want to make sure that executive summary is very comprehensive, covers every aspect of the work you're trying to accomplish. It should cover the problem statement. This is where you really want to talk about the distress, the need, the challenge that's happening in the area that you work in. Really lay it out to the funder. There's a problem, there's a need, there's issue. No one else is going to do it like you. Let them know there's something that needs to be addressed and desperately needs help and desperately needs the funding to fix it. Make sure that executive summary includes a piece of includes your vision, talks about the benefits. Let that funder know the benefits of their gift, of the benefits of their giving, what's going to change because of their providing the funds to help address that problem. What deliverables are you gonna achieve, and success criteria, objectives that's going to happen because of the funding. Talk about your deadlines, the plan approach, as well as the budget. So these things are going to be offered in more detail throughout your proposal, but you really want to summarize it very, very nicely in your executive summary. Again, the statement of need, it talks about, it's a direct statement identifying the issue to be addressed, what needs to be resolved. There's a problem, there's something that needs to be addressed, that without those funds, we can't do it. We need your help. This is where you really lay it on thick. Let them know there's a problem, we need your help. Talk about the parties involved in the situation. Let them know there's a family whose cupboards are empty. We need your help to fill their cupboards. Give any historic information. Talk about if they're in a community, if that family's a community where the local manufacturing company had to shut down and left the state and left these companies in despair, where they don't have a lot of food to eat. Really let them know and give them a background on the situation. They don't live by you. They don't see everything you see. This is where you tell them what's going on, what's wrong, how it got to that point, and how they can help. Any other relevant information that would be helpful for them to understand. Help them understand how the funder wants the problem explained. So sometimes they'll give it to you, tell you the information in the request for proposal, request for announcement, like the actual announcement that you're responding to. They'll let you know, in that situation, we want you to tell us maybe not so much about the food that's not in their cupboards, but tell us about if there's a need the parents have. Do they need more education? Do they need transportation to find a new job? So if the funder wants you to explain the problem a certain way, make sure you're doing that and staying within the guidelines of what the funder is asking for. The best information to explain the situation comes in the forms of quantitative and qualitative. So quantitative data is derived from statistical data collection and analysis, actual numbers. So think of census data. Census data is a survey collecting information on demographics, housing, whether or not you own your home. So those are very direct numbers and things that a researcher can combine and create a picture of what's happening in that home, in that community, in that state. Qualitative is data that is relevant, but described in narrative form. So think of like a focus group. If any of it is like, the focus groups are things just as you're sitting in this room around the board table. A researcher will come in, ask you a series of questions, and collect your responses, and take your responses and help document the information in a narrative way. So it's primarily open-ended questions that provide a narrative response to the situation. Proposals should read like a story. So after you've worked on developing your need statement, after you talk a bit more about the background, you want to use this sort of format for telling the story of what you're proposing to that funder. Begin again, like I said, the vision. That vision statement can be very brief and tell the overall picture of what you hope to achieve. Then you want to go into your mission statement of what you intend to do to help make your vision a reality. Next, you want to talk about the goal. And in that goal statement, you're addressing how you're going to achieve what you like to accomplish. The objectives, we'll talk a bit more in detail, but it's the specific activities and strategies, the specific strategies that you're going to use to achieve that goal. And then the activities should feed into the objectives themselves. So when you look at it from a pyramid standpoint, your activities are going to have a lot more information addressing the activities of the situation. And that's what's going to help populate your proposal. let the funder know what you're going to do with the money that they're going to give you and what you're going to achieve from those activities. The work plan should define the goals, objectives, the relevant activities or tasks, who's responsible for completing those tasks, the resources needed, and your timeline. We talked about supporting materials, especially as a nonprofit. Many times you're going to be asked to provide a copy of your IRS 501c3 letter. Make sure they know you're actually a IRS federally recognized nonprofit agency. If you're a government agency or an affiliate of a national organization, they would like to see a copy of your charter. Want to make sure that you are legally allowed to receive and use the funds as intended. Sometimes supporting materials include letters of support, organizational chart, scope of work, and budget estimates. So give that funder some extra information to understand what you need done and the activities and how much it's going to cost to complete those activities. So here we're going into an example so you can see in action how all these pieces fit. We're going to talk about the Copper Harbor Playground. So imagine a playground that's been around for a long time, but it hasn't been renovated in a while. You know, these swings may have been there since the 1960s, who knows, because they purchased sustainable materials, something for kids to play on, safe, weather resistant. And many times, you know, there's many playgrounds that look like this across the country because, you know, there just may not have been need to renovate or revise them. Well, the community decided, listen, these playgrounds have been around, they're great for our kids, but they're a bit outdated and they are in an environment of these beautiful trees and the green grass. And, you know, we need a playground that reflects the environment that this playground is in, that this location is in. So they decided, again, start with your vision. What is the overall vision? They said, our vision is to create a space for children that reflects the environment that it's in. We want to reflect the natural environment, the greenery of the grass, those natural elements that help our children, you know, play and be entertained in a beautiful space. And so they determined that their mission is to create a safe and accessible space for all children and families to enjoy. That the social and physical health that such a playground promotes is vital to the development of children of all abilities. This community strives to enrich the quality of life for all local citizens, provide economic value through facilities that support tourism, and encourage long-term community stability and growth. Now, your mission statement does not have to be this long, but they wanted to cover a number of different points because that's their vision. They wanted to make sure that their mission communicates the vision. So the vision is very, very high level and succinct. You know, the very high level vision of the safe and accessible space. That's it. That's all they want to do for their vision. But they want to take a step further in the mission. And the mission identifies both the safe environment, social and physical health of kids. So that ties into activities and things they may seek to do in the goals. And then as well as enriching quality of life. So that's another lead in for a goal statement. Economic value through facilities, another goal statement. So that mission alone helps encompass at least 3 goal areas that they hope to accomplish with their nonprofit. So pulling out one of their goals, the goal is to replace the current playground with new equipment that blends in with Copper Harbor's natural environment. So there's a lot of statements in there that could be translated into goal areas, but this is the main one because it achieves what? The main vision of improving the space for a fun, entertaining space for the kids. So we're looking at a goal of replacing the current playground with new equipment. That's it. You can be very direct, very concise, very succinct. Objectives is where you go into more detail about how you're going to achieve the goal and making sure that the objective covers many key areas. And how many of you have heard of SMART objectives? That you are addressing things specific, measurable, attainable, or achievable, realistic, and timely. So you want to address in your objectives the who, what, for whom, by when, where, how much or to what extent. So it could say, we're going to renovate the playground, but that's not where they stop. They want to make sure it's in a playground that blends in with the environment. So that's taking a step further of making sure they achieve that goal of blending in the playground with the environment that surrounds it. Now, what's happened as well in the current environment is that people are taking their objectives a step further. They want to make sure the objectives address any challenges that may not have been discussed or presented in any other particular area, but it's what they're going to use the funding and the resources to address. They want to make sure they're inclusive. And when I said earlier, in the mission statement for Copper Harbor, they talked about wanting to provide a playground for all children. So when you say all children, that means that they may want to identify key things that address the needs of children with disabilities to make sure they're not left out. So that's how you can make sure it's included by stating just even a small brief word. In their mission statement, they just used the two words, all children, and that made it inclusive as well as equitable. So they're going to ensure that the things that are provided in that playground are also equitable, that there are no disparities of children that come in and play and use those facilities. So objective is, here's just a very brief example. By July 31st of 2023, they're going to complete one town hall meeting at the Copper Harbor Civic Center with parents of toddlers and other small children at or at least 48 inches tall. So you want to be descriptive in your objectives. This indicates when, by July 31st, where, complete one town hall meeting at the Copper Harbor Civic Center, for whom, parents of toddlers and small children, and to what extent. So they want to make sure they didn't just say children, but they said children at least 48 inches tall. So you can do that in your objective statements. That gives the funder more of an understanding about what you're hoping to accomplish. And just to repeat that, we will make sure everyone has a copy of the recording after, as well as have a very nice, lots of time for a Q&A segment. So when you talk about timeline, determine the length of time needed for each activity. Estimate the completion date for certain milestones. So there are going to be some milestones along the way. Every project has milestones, those key turning point areas that help you know you're succeeding in your mission. Estimate date to complete all proposed activities. And so these are the nice little pieces you use to create your work plan. So here's an example work plan document. This is just a standard table. People use different forms of formats, but you want to make sure that your work plan addresses the task, the activity, person responsible. You want to make sure that an activity is actually assigned to someone, a deadline, as well as taking a step further by not just stopping at deadline, but sometimes give yourself a start date and an end date, so that you're able to really explain and show to the funder, we know what we've looked at and researched going into the project. So we want to make sure that everything is done and completed by a certain date. And so these are the timelines that we're going to hold ourselves to make sure that we are accountable to the funds that you're giving us. Talk about standard budget components. The statement of projected costs, you want to make sure that's included somewhere in your narrative. Make sure that in your narrative, it explains this is how much money we're asking you for. And you can go into your budget explaining line item expenses by personnel, fringe benefits. Now those are the taxes, benefits offered to your staff, paying the respective FICO and other requirements. Make sure that's included in your budget. Where else is the money coming from if you don't ask for it? And you want to make sure your budget includes travel expenses, if that's necessary, equipment, supplies, contractual costs. So if they're bringing in an outside contractor for design work, that's something you can include in the budget. Other direct costs, as well as the administrative cost expenses. Now, this is something I noticed. I work with nonprofits for over 19 years now. This is something I've noticed nonprofits fail to do in their request. Make sure you determine an agreed upon percentage for your administrative cost expenses. The federal government for all nonprofits, all matters, allows 10% of the budget to go towards your administrative cost expenses. Now, you can ensure that this is validated by confirming with the funder first before you put it in your budget, but that is a standard across the board. 10 to 15% is allowed for paying for your oversight expenses, because there's going to be some expenses that may not necessarily fall in line directly with your project or budget, but Those are the expenses that goes into rent, your building insurance, your electricity. Those are things that may not be directly related to the project, because we're talking about an outside playground right here, but there's going to be need for the staff to work someplace that has lighting and electricity and air conditioning for them to work on building the project, building the playground. So know that it does relate to the project, and that's why it falls under indirect costs. So your direct costs are those costs associated with actual playground pieces and elements. Indirect costs are going to be those administrative costs for managing the entire project. And include some aspect evaluation. How will you measure successful completion of the project and prove the project achieved intended outcome? So we know that from a playground example, there's many things that will let you know you're in a making success. And so you can break down your evaluation into process questions and outcome questions. Process questions include, did we complete our meetings on time? Did we get a design from the contractor on time? Outcome questions are things that help you determine your achievement of the milestones themselves. Did we achieve purchasing all the playground equipment by X date? Did we complete all of our town hall meetings by X date? Did we get the reports and documentation from our community citizens by X date? So those are more so the outcome questions that help you look at the picture from a larger view. The grant proposal components include executive summary, again, background, justification, statement of need. Like I said, the background is where you are allowed to beg, you're allowed to plead. This is where you educate the funder on why this is a problem. Tell them that this is a problem, explain to them as detailed as you can what the need is and why their funds are needed to address that need. Include a project description, organizational information, let them know who you are, how long you've been in existence, what is your experience with renovating playgrounds. If not, let them know this is something that we've addressed as a need because these are for the children in our community, and we love and care for these children, and we want them to have this beautiful playground. Talk about any partner information, including the scope of work for their partners. So not just saying that a partner is going to be involved, but including some aspect of what they're going to be responsible for. Talk about the budget, just in very brief terms, because again, this is just with the executive summary, you want to indicate how much you're applying for, but you want to go into greater detail in the actual proposal, as well as include any attachments, some information, or any other requested items. So any questions at this point? Or anything you'd like me to revisit? Yes, I saw a hand raised. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you go over what fringe benefits are again? Fringe
Absolutely.
benefits?
Yes. Fringe benefits are not the direct payments made to your staff for salary. Fringe are those expenses that are typically paid when you pay your staff. Taxes, FICA, the insurance. You can estimate how much it would cost to pay for those expenses for your staff over the course of that project and include those in your budget.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Many times people get caught up in putting in money for a budget to pay for someone, but when you pay for someone, a lot of things are not already rolled into their hourly cost. And you can request additional funds under fringe benefit requests. Any other questions? Yes.
We have these notes available to us. PowerPoint.
Yeah, it's all. Well, I don't know the recording minutes. So yeah, I'm just suggesting the pictures of every slide. Is it big help? Because you can look back at the pictures later, get all the information. You can actually like focus on what they're saying versus like trying to type it all out. Save my butt at university. So
Natasha, are you sharing the PowerPoints?
Yes.
okay. My question was about contractual expenses. You mentioned that could be used for like marketing media, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that included in that? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So, and there's some people take it a step further as well, because they can use their divide it even further into contracts and consultants. So you have consulting, where you bring in someone who might have an architectural design background and assisting with design, and then you have the contract go to the actual playground vendor or company that will come in and set up the playground for you. So there you can divide it even further, because one is more professional services, design and thinking, and then the other one is actual vendor providing the hands-on labor. And they would be the contractor. Some people give consultants the contractor label as well, but it just depends on what the funder allows and how they allow you to present that budget report, as well as how your own agency breaks down your budget.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So again, I want to emphasize the money is out there. $484 billion in 2021 alone. Now, given that there was a lot more funding giving because of COVID and many other social justice and racial equity causes and situations that occurred, but knowing that the mass majority of that money came from individuals. So if people are giving, they will continue to give as long as they trust the cause and trust the agency that is present the problem before them, and trust that they can address and address the situation, providing the solution. Yeah, so take opportunity to share, let people know who you are, what you do, what you've accomplished. Let them know, and so that you're building that trust and credibility so that they feel more comfortable giving to you. And if you need to, when to give, because sometimes people, like I said, only have annual campaigns where they may only look to ask for funds one time a year, or 3 months out of the year, so that they can focus on when to request funds and use the remainder of the year to actually do the services, so that you're not constantly always trying to raise funds, but determining what the schedule, what's the best schedule for you. And I didn't include this in the presentation, but know that when it comes to the grant makers, understanding that all grant makers have a schedule. And for it comes to the federal grants and opportunities, they follow sometimes typically the federal fiscal calendar, which runs from October 1 to September 29th. So typically federal calendars, October 1 to September 29th. And those are your grants.gov opportunities, major, larger financial opportunities. From state proposals and state funding opportunities, check with your state's division of administration, but typically states run anywhere from typically from July 1 to June 29th or June 30th. So understanding that even they have a schedule of when their funds or when they're announcing funds and funding opportunities. But know that if you become more knowledgeable and acquainted with that particular schedule, then you know when to look for funds and when those funds will be posted, when those announcements will be posted. So I had a little bit more to show you about the Copper Harbor, and then we'll just have a little bit of segment on from the Revenue Research Center. So, sorry? Oh, question, yes.
Do you have any information on the state of Florida specifically? We're right to Florida.
State of Florida has follows the July to June schedule, and so as of right now, they are. I would think that they have either announced opportunities or getting ready to, if they haven't already done so, and they are also transitioning into their 2023 fiscal year. So any funds not spent from their 2022 then become new grant opportunities. Or if you know a particular office that you're looking for funds from, that could also be a question to them. If they had a project before, but may not have spent all the funds from that particular project, that's a question you can ask and find out if they have additional monies from that project.
Okay, who is they and where would I ask?
It depends on the office, because the state of the Florida Department of Health or department agencies are huge. So you definitely want to look the My Florida Marketplace. That will be a great first step for you if you're looking to partner or contract with any agency, any government agency, because the marketplace is where all of the bids, announcements flow through, and it's a very simple process. So go to My Florida Marketplace for more information. And My Florida Marketplace offers lots of trainings, great insight, great information. It's very easy to use, and it can, in many instances, be set up within 2 weeks and ready to pursue different announcements and bids. Yes, but know which agency or what area you're looking to connect with the agency on and for. So if it's the services for people with disabilities, you want to connect with the Office of Adult and Disability Services, Office of Adult Aging Services, or Office of Citizens with Developmental Disabilities. If it's a heart disease or other type of health related area, then that's where you want to connect with the Florida Department of Health. Like, really make sure you research and know which agency has a program or project that you would like to partner with them on.
So I need my business and my nonprofit to run parallel to each other and like feed into each other. Do you recommend or have any pros or cons into establishing the business or the nonprofit first? Or do you recommend that they are established at the same time, which is like almost impossible?
It depends on what it is and how you intend to manage and operate them. Because if one has to feed into other, many people set up a business to support a nonprofit, or vice versa. Because sometimes you may find yourself in a situation, people find themselves in situations where if their particular cause is something that they can get grants for to fund it, and then the revenue from those grants then support the business. It just depends on what cause you're seeking to address.
Okay. And does app grants fall into all of this? Like
Sorry, say it again?
Does a grant for app development fall into all of this?
App development, that would fall
Yeah.
under your Small Business Innovation Research through grants.gov. The acronyms are STTR or SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research or Small Technology Transfer Research.
I can't really hear you. Can you run that website one more time?
Yes,
So-
the acronym is either going to be S as in Sam, B as in boy, I as in igloo, R as in red, or STTR is S as in Sam, T as in Tom, T as in Tom, R as in red. And so if you Google those or any web browser, those acronyms will take you to a wealth of information on those particular availabilities. And don't, as well as the Small Business Administration, the National Small Business Administration has offices in every state and counties, depending, especially for Tallahassee. I know Tallahassee has a Small Business Administration office. Many small business administration offices also address needs of nonprofits, especially people who go into that hybrid structure. So definitely meet with them and talk to them about what you intend to do, what you hope to achieve, because they would have guidance on assisting you with those particular areas. And so, as well as the Institute for Nonprofit Innovation Excellence, because you can work with them on furthering developing the nonprofit and finding the funding opportunities for addressing both.
Awesome. And so the SBIR, what are the words for that acronym?
Small
Small
business, innovation, research.
Thank you.
These last few minutes, go into our last set of slides, as well as just a continued introduction into the Revenue Research Center. Thank you very much for your questions. Again, like I said, this meeting is being recorded, so you'll have a copy of this presentation as well as the slides and the questions and answered segment that we just completed. So going back to our friends at Copper Harbor. They worked with a consultant to help create design. Like I said, they wanted a playground that reflected the environment they were in. So as you can see, you know, they brought in elements of the brown and the greens of the environment and the tans to really design a nice playground area, a safe space for the kids. And made it inclusive to where there's different types of activities the kids can do depending on their level of physical ability. And it's a genuine, legit playground, Copper Harbor Playground. So they nature-inspired playground at Copper Harbor School, and that's adjacent to the Grant Township Park. There's many activities, one for kids 2 to 5, one for kids 5 to 12. So they made it inclusive, making sure the kids of different ages could be entertained and involved. Again, design elements showing, first you saw the rendering, and this is the actual version of it. And that's the actual slide, the big log. As well, again, yeah, it's very inclusive. The little a bear, little swing set in the background for the smaller kids. So talk a bit about common grant writing mistakes. These are things you do not want to do. So don't forget to submit your proposal on time. I will make sure that's correct. It's like you want to submit your proposal on time. So don't make the mistake of not submitting the proposal on time. Sorry, it was not correctly said, but I will correct that. You want to submit your proposal on time. A mistake is not following instructions. If they want you to put your information in a certain sequence, if they want to see the budget as the first thing they look at, put the budget at the front, because that's what the funder wants. Don't say, well, I've written proposals for 30 years. We put the budget in this space. It doesn't flow like that. You're going to go right to the trash because there's a reason why they've asked you to do that. And you want to follow, make sure that sequence is what they've asked for. Be sure to request to use the funds for something they actually are going to pay for. Many people make the mistake of requesting funds for something other than what the funder intended the funds for. If they say they want you to use the funds for playgrounds, don't use the funds to buy a refrigerator for a daycare center. That's not what the funding's for. If it's not eligible for that grant opportunity. So if you're if you work to address the needs of animals, animal rescue, but the funding is for kids, the kids that need wheelchairs, that is not that particular grant opportunity. So you need to connect with INIE's Revenue Research Center and find the right grant opportunity for your cause. Don't make the mistake of forgetting to submit all the required documents and documentation. So you want to make sure that you've given them everything they've asked for. So again, my name is Natasha McCoy, representing NM2C LLC, and this has been a great pleasure to have this opportunity to connect with you as well. Again, thanking Executive Director Grippa and Mr. Darling, and all of you with the Institute of Nonprofit Innovation Excellence for this great opportunity. So I just wanted to take a moment just to promote again with the Institute of Nonprofit Innovation Excellence of Revenue Research Center. They give you access to great services that they pay for on a month-to-month. So you have access to it and don't have to pay for those things yourself directly. That this is the instrumental, Grant Watch, grants.gov, Foundation Directory Online, and Grant Station. So all of these services are things that are typically paid for, but it's being offered to you for free as a member of INIE. as well as different digital resources that you may have seen this list already, providing assistance with subscription services, grant templates, review and editing services. So sometimes if you need someone to just review the proposal for you, they can provide that service as well. As well as a la carte services. Sometimes there's things you just need that you didn't necessarily know you needed before you went into the conversation discussions with any, but find it something that could be helpful for you. So there are other services that are offered on top of your membership. So that's the end of the presentation. I again want to ask if anyone has any questions. So I'll go ahead and put my contact information up again.
Natasha. That was fantastic.
Sorry, say it again.
Okay, we're gonna end the
Okay.
We're gonna end the recording. Thank you. Actually, I don't think we're gonna have to do a second session because our anticipated